Hi, good afternoon to everyone. Yeah, I'm so pleased to be able to talk to you. Usually I give lectures, notes and things. But this, I accepted this invitation because I really like to talk to young people. And especially, well, the topic is, I think young people have a sort of more difficult time than when we were growing up. The teenage young adult life is always a difficult time, but it has become even more difficult today because today's youth, they're ultra connected, flooded with social media, filled with advertisements, AI. You don't know whether what you're looking at is true or not. You've got a lot of advertisements, scams, and for many young people, especially those who always have earplugs, earphones in there. I mean, that's all they hear, like so many hours of the day. So the concerns of the youth today are there are many. You have economic and uncertainty, job market, AI. How will AI affect your career? So many of us probably have options overseas. So we'd like to know: are we going to stay here or go abroad? All of us have relatives, elsewhere, in the States, in Europe. So should we go there? So there's a strong temptation to escape and not confront these concerns. So this is a stage in life. It's important time for decision. What I want to do, what I want to be, what are the strong bonds of friendships. There's a strong tendency, let's all stay together, we're friends in high school. Let's keep this bond forever. So how do you decide your direction? What will make me happy? What will make your friends happy? And what are you good at? But this really needs silence. And it's hard to have silence when you have all of this, social media going on. So I would like to share with you my own career choices and why I took the less traveled path. Looking back, let me share to you some thoughts when I was in high school, since you're all in high school. You all know about PE, physical education. And so I was also into sports when I was in high school. Now, there are two types of sports. I mean, PE is what you have to do for a grade, but sports is what you do because you do it in your spare time, in your free time. You do it because you enjoy it. And what's important here is I discovered is that there are really two types of sports. One is team sports, and the other is solitary sports. Team sports would be like playing football, basketball. They're great for learning teamwork. You have plans, you have to try to carry it out. So teamwork is very important. But so team sports really teach us a lot about cooperation, learn to play a role. So you have this position on the team, you stick to that role. But it's also important to do like solitary type of sports. And what I did is I did long distance running. So in high school, I used to run the 3,000 meter, and in college I did 5,000 meter runs. And then I did long distance, and you really discover that both have an important role in your life. Team sports, you learn about working with others, but solitary sports, doing long distance, you learn discipline, do things by yourself, even if of course it hurts. But in the end, I think combining both is really a good thing. And you really need sports throughout your life. I'm 72, so I've been running since I was in 15. So it really keeps you healthy. So the second decision I made in high school was take up chemistry. Now, most often you meet people who say, oh, I'm taking chemistry. They say, oh, wow, you must be a nerd or something. And they ask me, why? Why do you want to take up chemistry? Why it's so difficult? Well, I guess I'd have to tell you that my high school teacher, chemistry teacher, is very good. And he taught chemistry not just as a subject, but he taught it because you could feel that he believed in it. So he showed me that chemistry can do many things. It's true, that I found out later. So of course you can do it for industry, but you can also do it for health. There was a time in high school I thought, why don't I become a doctor? Because my father was a doctor. And then I realized then that having good chemistry, you learn biochemistry, and the best doctors are those who understand biochemistry, metabolism. They don't just give you drugs because the pharmaceutical companies tell you that, but because they understand what's going on. Yeah, anyway, so there I took up chemistry. And of course, today you realize that chemistry is cause a lot of problems, pollution, plastics, and all that. But the the solution to all of these is really better chemistry. For you young people, we need better chemistry to solve our environmental and pollution problems. So I took the lowest road less traveled. In my batch of about 300 in the senior high school, I was the only one who took chemistry. So in 1971, I went to the Ateneo for college and took up batch BS chemistry. Chemistry was a rare course. Well, when we entered, our batch is we were about 8 in the entering batch. When you graduated, there were only about 3 left. I guess what I'd like to share about my experience at Ateneo is that going to college, you usually choose a major because you want knowledge. So you want to be whatever an accountant, you want to be a businessman, you want to be a psychologist. So you want to learn knowledge about what that field is. But very important is also building character, because knowledge actually fades over time, and also what you learned 5 years ago isn't up to date anymore. So you have to keep, knowledge is in a sense can be temporary because the field changes. But if you learn good character, it stays with you much longer. I think that's important for someone to do when you go to college. Choose a school that will give you both knowledge and character. Now, in 1976, I was lucky enough to get a teaching assistant, research assistantship, and I went to Princeton University in New Jersey to do my master's and then my doctorate, my PhD in chemistry. I was a teaching assistant for my first 2 years when I supervised undergraduate laboratory classes. And the students there, they were pre-meds. And if you've met pre-meds in the States, they're really after the grades. B plus isn't good enough. They all want an A. So you have to deal with all of these things. And then before you can graduate, you have to publish a paper in a journal. So this is what you call publish or perish. If you don't publish a paper, then you don't pass. So there I was. The journal article there is one of my PhD topics that was published in about 1978 or so. So after countless hours in the laboratory, I was able to fulfill this requirement. So this esoteric sounding title describes a process that is used to synthesize pharmaceuticals. So the project I was on was to develop a step to make pharmaceuticals for Merck laboratories. These were like years of swimming and growing in a big pond. Everyone seemed smarter than you, and they probably knew more than I did. So you have to struggle through those. So it was like swimming and learning in a big pond. I think it was a small pond. Now this is a big pond. So fortunately, I was able to graduate with my PhD. And then 1981, I was able to get a research associate postdoc at Oxford University. The organic chemistry department was a place where many reactions that are described in chemistry textbooks were developed in those labs. So what was interesting was that you go to a fume hood and you see all of these things up in the, splashed all the fume hoods. I asked them, why don't you clean it up? And they tell me, oh, that was where this reaction was discovered. So they preserve all the dirt in the laboratory. I don't think they do that now anymore. So I was involved in a project on the synthesis of amino acids. Amino acids are those compounds that make proteins. And in this case, I was using this metal called rhodium. Rhodium is actually a very expensive metal. It's probably more expensive than silver or gold, used for catalysis. When I was doing that, I was thinking, I'm spending all my time to use this, to develop the system to make an amino acid, which is really a natural product. So I thought to myself, what are natural products? So I read up on it and discovered that natural products are really, there are things you would get that plants make, that you get from organisms. So they're made by natural systems. On the surface, natural products is called the chemistry of things from nature. But as I learned, it is an incredibly rich intersection of biosynthesis, ecology, evolution, and analytical chemistry, as well as drug discovery. So it's a discipline that rewards both molecular curiosity and systems thinking. And very importantly, natural products chemistry is an area that has great opportunities for the Philippines. This was my next big decision. Should I go migrate, go to the States or Europe, or to go home? Now, so I finished my postdoctoral stint in 1982. I decided to go home because, in a way, what I thought to myself is, I'm doing all this work to solve problems for other people. Why didn't I come home and, solve problems for the country, for the Philippines? And when they say home is where the heart is, it's really true because that's really where you can give your experiences, your efforts for people, who are at home. So, and I thought working in the area of natural products was an important opportunity. So I returned to the Philippines, and this was my second fork on the road. So, well, fortunately, when I went home, there was this DUST long-term balik scientist grant, which sort of gave me the ticket to come home. So that was nice. This slide says from synthetic chemistry to natural chemistry, because synthetic chemistry was what I'd been working on when I was abroad. Working with catalysts and metal synthesis, and natural products is natural chemistry. So I was able to join a research group. If you remember Flavier, Senator Flavier, and this Sampung Halamang Gamot, and one of those 10 plants was Vitex Negundo or Lagundi. So I worked on Lagundi, and what you see there is a publication which I worked on, identified which compounds in Lagundi would be responsible for the properties, curative properties of Lagundi. And based on that work, and of course the work of the whole team, first medicinal plant recognized by the BFAD at the time, Bureau of Food and Drug, now the FDA Philippines, is ASCOF, and that is Lagundi. So I saw that it's really a really good way of applying chemistry, natural product chemistry, because in developing this product, you develop not only cure for the Philippines, but the plant itself is grown in the country. So you're actually helping farmers. They get more income because now they're growing crops which are high value. And so medicinal plants is an important contributor, not just to economics and making companies have a good income, but it's very good for the farmers as well, and very good for the environment. Because to grow these plants, you have to follow strict rules about no pesticides, no it has to be natural. I did this. I mean, I do this work until today, so it's something I think is very important and something which I would not been able to have done if I'd stayed abroad. Now, the second thing which I got into is coconut oil. I'm happy to say, I'm proud to say, that my father was the one who started the work on virgin coconut oil. Actually, in 1998, he was involved in a clinical study to use coconut oil for HIV patients, and this was done at the Department of Health. It was a small study, there were about 18 patients, but at the end of the study showed that coconut oil had potential to treat HIV. They tried to recruit more patients because they need about 80 to 100 patients, and they couldn't get it, so that didn't really continue. I got into it because my father told me, here's some coconut oil, why don't you analyze it? So I analyzed it as a chemist, and then I started reading about coconut oil and said, oh, this is really good, because I could understand the chemistry and how it worked. But then the Americans are so anti-coconut for various reasons to protect their own industry. So they say saturated fats are bad for you, which actually isn't true. So I started my studies on coconut, and virgin coconut oil became commercialized around the year 2000, and I still help the industry with quality and other aspects of VCO. I wrote a book and wrote quite a number of articles on virgin coconut oil. And I've been taking VCO since about 2002. So for those of you who want to stay young and healthy, I recommend taking VCO. Work as a chemist, we publish all these papers on coconut, and I continue to do that work today. So these were my career choices. First, I chose a subject that I believed would be useful and important, even though I knew it was difficult. And second, I went back home to use what I had learned so that I could do things for the country. So those are two of the other things that I got involved in, medicinal plants and coconut oil. So I was able to use the chemistry that I learned to help develop medicinal plants and coconut oil. And it is not just the work in science that is important, it's about the people that one is able to help with the chemistry that you know. So I think that is a good career choice for me. And I haven't really regretted any of that today. Now I'd like to end my talk with some advice on, I started this talk talking about, AI and all this. For the young people and even for the old people, some advice on AI and learning. So there are three things that I mentioned there. First, the brain needs exercise like a muscle. Of course, the brain's not a muscle, but you need to keep it going. If you don't use the brain, then you probably get Alzheimer's or forgetfulness. So treat your brain like a muscle and exercise it. Secondly, AI could provide a lot of information, but not learning. You can Google it, it gives you all the information, but do you learn it? And so you should really exercise your brain to learn. Now, this is an article which I found just recently. ChatGPT as a cognitive crutch, evidence from a randomized controlled trial. And what they say is, while AI assistance may ease initial learning, it appears to undermine the effortful processes needed for robust learning. I'd like to emphasize effortful because it takes effort to think, and many people will depend on AI to shortcut that effort. Of course, we all use AI, but for me, I wouldn't use AI if I know zero about the topic. I have to learn about it before you ask AI because AI can lead you astray and just make you lazy. I'd like to share three lessons and insights from this talk. First, character before career. The foundation of your career is really your character. If you have strong character, you can be successful in any career. So build your character. The second is strong roots. Strong trees need strong roots. The tree can only grow as tall as the roots are broad and deep. So, look at any tree. If the roots are shallow and weak, then the tree will fall off. So you need strong trees need strong roots. And finally, don't be afraid to take the less traveled path. So for those of you who are choosing your career, now I wish you all the best and I thank you for listening. Thank you.